Sometimes people judge others too quickly, and it comes back to haunt them. Tonight, in one of the most exclusive restaurants in Los Angeles, a waiter made the biggest mistake of his career. He insulted a customer, assuming he didn't belong. But what he didn't know? That man was none other than Brad Pitt, and he wasn't just another guest. He owned the place. What happened next? Well, let's just say he learned his lesson the hard way. Stay tuned to see how. This jaw-dropping moment unfolded. The soft glow of chandeliers reflected off polished wine glasses, casting warm golden flecks of light across the restaurant. Conversations hummed in hushed, refined tones, blending seamlessly with the occasional clink of silverware against fine china, a subtle symphony of luxury. L'Étoile Brillante, a name that carried weight in Los Angeles. It wasn't just a restaurant, it was an institution, a sanctuary for Hollywood's elite. The kind of place where power and prestige weren't flaunted but simply understood. A-list actors, producers, and business tycoons dined here, knowing that behind these elegantly frosted glass doors, they were safe from paparazzi flashes and the ever-watchful public eye. The service? Impeccable. The menu? Curated by Michelin star chefs. The clientele? Carefully selected. Or at least, that was how it was supposed to be. Tonight, however, something was about to go very, very wrong. At a dimly lit corner table, a man sat alone. His posture was relaxed, yet there was something unmistakable about his presence. A quiet confidence. The kind of effortless ease that came from a lifetime of being somebody. He wasn't adorned in flashy designer suits. No extravagant jewelry, no entourage, just a leather jacket, a simple t-shirt, fitted jeans, and yet, anyone with a fraction of awareness would know exactly who he was. Brad Pitt. Tonight, he had come for something simple, a quiet evening, a well-prepared meal, a rare moment away from the relentless glare of the spotlight. Little did he know. He was about to be disrespected, and the one responsible. A waiter who was about to make the biggest mistake of his career. Ethan had only been working at L'Étoile Brillante for 6 months, but 6 months was all it took. All it took for him to start thinking he knew people. He had a habit, a dangerous one. He judged customers the moment they walked in. The tailored suits, the designer watches, the expensive shoes, those were the signs he looked for. That's how he decided who belonged and who didn't. And tonight, as he approached the dimly lit corner table, he saw none of those signs. Just a guy in a leather jacket and jeans. Unimpressed, Ethan strolled over, already making up his mind. "Sir, are you sure you're in the right place?" His voice carried a thin layer of politeness, just enough to avoid sounding outright rude, but laced with something else, something condescending. Brad Pitt looked up, his face unreadable. "Excuse me?" Ethan let out a sigh, barely hiding his impatience. "Look," he said, giving Brad's outfit another once-over. "We cater to a different clientele. Maybe you'd be more comfortable somewhere else." A couple at the next table gasped. A bartender polishing a glass froze. A woman in a silk gown exchanged wide-eyed glances with her husband. Had this guy seriously just said that? Brad leaned back in his chair, fingers drumming lightly on the table. Then came the smirk. Not one of amusement, not one of offense. No, this was something else entirely. "So let me get this straight," he said, voice calm. "You're saying I don't belong here?" Ethan folded his arms, shifting his weight onto one leg. "I'm just saying, we have a certain standard here. Maybe try a steakhouse down the street." The restaurant fell dead silent. Every conversation, every clinking glass, every hushed whisper, gone. People turned, staff held their breath, and Ethan had no idea what he had just done, because here's what he didn't know. He worked here. Brad Pitt owned the place, and that mistake? It was about to cost him everything. Before Brad could respond, the sharp click of dress shoes against marble cut through the silence. A tall man in a crisp black suit rushed over, his movements quick but controlled. Daniel, L'Étoile Brillante's general manager. He had seen the whole thing, and his face, pale. His jaw was tight, his hands clenched just enough to reveal his tension. He stopped beside Ethan, eyes locked onto him like a disappointed father about to lay down the law. Ethan, just his name. Cold. Firm. A warning. Ethan barely turned his head, scoffing. "What?" he said, waving a hand toward Brad. "I'm making sure we maintain the right atmosphere. This guy doesn't exactly scream high-class dining." A sharp inhale from somewhere in the room. Someone muttered, "Oh my God." Brad let out a quiet chuckle under his breath. Not loud, just enough for those paying attention to hear. Daniel closed his eyes for half a second. Then he turned to Brad. "Mr. Pitt, I am so sorry." Ethan blinked once, twice, then frowned. "Wait, what?" he stammered, his brain scrambling to catch up. "Mr. Pitt? As in Brad Pitt?" Daniel's head turned slowly toward him, and when he spoke, his words were measured, each syllable slicing through the moment like a knife. Not just Brad Pitt, Ethan. A pause. The owner of this restaurant. Silence. Pure, deafening, unforgiving, Ethan's. Face went ghost white. His breath caught in his throat. His mouth opened, but for the first time tonight. He had nothing to say. A wave of shock and pure horror crashed over Ethan. His breath hitched. His chest tightened. He had just insulted his own boss, and not just any boss, Brad Pitt, the man he had brushed off like some random nobody. He owned this place. Ethan's legs felt unsteady beneath him. His mouth opened, but no words came out. Meanwhile, Brad, completely calm, unshaken, unbothered. With slow, deliberate movements, he reached for his glass of water, took a sip, then set it down. Finally, he looked up at Ethan, studying him. "Tell me something," Brad said, his voice casual. Too casual. "Do you always judge people by how they look?" Ethan's lips parted. He scrambled for an answer. I just thought," Brad nodded, slow and thoughtful. "You thought that because I wasn't in a tuxedo, I didn't belong." His tone wasn't angry. It was worse. It was disappointed. "That's interesting." The weight of the moment pressed down on the room. The entire restaurant had gone still. Servers had stopped mid-step. A bartender held a bottle in the air, too distracted to pour. Even the chefs in the open kitchen had gone silent, their eyes locked on the scene unfolding before them. Brad set his glass down, then leaned forward, his hands resting on the table. "See, Ethan, here's the thing," he said. "This restaurant, I built it to be a place where anyone, famous or not, can enjoy a great meal without being judged." Ethan swallowed hard. "Sir, I didn't know." Brad tilted his head slightly, his gaze steady. "Yeah." A beat of silence. "You didn't." Another beat. "But you do now." Ethan's hands started to shake. Daniel, still standing beside him, cleared his throat. "Mr. Pitt, I will personally handle this." Brad held up a hand, cutting him off, eyes still locked on Ethan. "You ever hear the saying?" he asked, his voice quiet but firm. "Treat the janitor the same way you'd treat the CEO?" Ethan nodded weakly, unable to speak. "Good." Brad sat back. "Because you just learned that the hard way." The next morning, Ethan stood on the sidewalk outside L'Étoile Brillante, staring at the glass door, his stomach twisted. There, taped neatly, at eye level, was a crisp white notice. Hiring. Experienced waitstaff with a passion for excellent service. His heart sank. The message was clear. His job, gone. Through the glass, the restaurant was alive as usual, staff moving with precision, catering to guests with warmth and professionalism. Conversations hummed, silverware clinked, and the scent of fresh espresso and buttery pastries filled the air. Everything was normal, as if he had never been a part of it at all. And then, his eyes landed on that table, the very spot where his arrogance had cost him everything. Seated there, sipping a cup of black coffee, was Brad Pitt. Calm, unbothered, like last night had never happened. Like Ethan had never happened. The realization hit harder than any lecture ever could. Respect wasn't about expensive suits or VIP status. It was about how you treated people. And Ethan? He had learned that lesson too late. Some lessons in life are learned the hard way. Ethan thought he could judge someone based on appearance, but little did he know. The very man he insulted owned the restaurant. Brad Pitt didn't need to yell, threaten, or humiliate him. Instead, he taught him a lesson with grace and composure, a lesson he'll never forget. So next time you meet someone, remember this story, because you never know who you're really talking to. Thanks for watching, and if you enjoyed this story, be sure to like, subscribe, and hit the notification bell for more incredible tales.